Started recording. Yes. So good evening, everyone. Welcome to today's class, and I'm still the tutor, Yemi Ayola. So continue. Today, we are going to be looking at the vital part also of tests of manual testing, which we are going to be talking about test management today, and it entails a lot of topics. So this is our learning objectives for today. This is all we intend to cover: test management, risk and testing, entry criteria. I know we've talked about that initially. Exit criteria, test plan, how to design a test plan, test strategy, how to design a test strategy, then question and answer. So that takes us to test management process. What is test management process? Test management process is a procedure of managing the software testing activity from start to end. So from the beginning to the end, we want to manage it. We want to understand how it is. So which involves a process that will do planning, control. Who can remember this is part of our fundamental test process. So this is the activity now that we are going to imbibe in these two. So we are talking about planning and control. That's our first level when we're doing the fundamental test process, tracking and monitoring facilities throughout the whole project cycle. The process involves several activities like test planning, designing, and test execution. Those are the things that we're going to do. It's things that we've already known that we're coming up and we're doing. It gives us an initial plan and discipline to software testing process. So we want to guide ourselves. We want to be able to manage the whole scenario from start to finish. That's mainly our end-to-end process, so that we are not all over the place. We know exactly what we want to deliver. We want to know how we want to test and take those into consideration. So what are the parts of test management process? There are two main parts of test management process. The first one is planning. In planning, we have the risk analysis, we've got the test estimation, we've got the test planning, we've got the test organization, then we've got execution phase. And this process, in the execution process, we've got test monitoring and control, we've got issue management, we've got a test report and evaluation. So these are just the main test management process. So we've got the planning and execution phase. So that's mainly, and if you can remember in our fundamental test process, I told you it's a period, it's more of a block. We have to, those are the processes we're going to follow. All these things here, I've mentioned them, I've talked about them initially. So you would see how everything is coming together, because this is mainly virtually the end of our manual testing class that we are approaching. So planning, risk analysis. What is the risk? Risk is the potential loss. So we want to, when we are testing, when I told you about keeping software under control, I said when you're testing, be checking the risk. That's when, because we need to know when testing is going to stop. Hence, we need to keep it under control. We need to be sure that we have tested properly. So risk is the potential loss, an undesirable outcome, however, not necessarily so. So here is that we want to be sure that whenever we are testing, we are checking the risk. We are looking at it. What are the critical parts of this testing? What can we do that is going to, the consequences of we not testing properly? What is going to cause loss of life? What is going to cause injury? What is going to cause loss of money, business reputation? We need to think about that. So hence, the essence of the risk analysis. So risk analysis is the first step that test managers should consider before starting any project. Because all projects may contain risk, early risk detection and identification of each solution will help test manager to avoid potential loss in the future and save on cost, project cost. So majorly, I'm always asked to be skeptical about test manager. Test manager, you and I, we have to, even if I'm the lead, um, even if I'm the manager, we are all going to come together as one to look at the risk. We would have been given a document. We need to highlight them immediately. And because there are phases, because the earlier you detect the bug, the better. It reduces, you save money, you save the cost. We at least it's still early, and you've detected it. So it will heal a lot of things. It will cure a lot of things in terms of before the code is even we've started the code, we've detected a lot of bugs. It will help us. So that's the major thing. It will avoid the unnecessary issues, bugs, even save a lot of cost, because the deeper the bug, the more money, the more resources that you're using. What I mean resources, you and I, the developers and everything, because they have their time. We have our time assigned to this project. So those are the reasons that we take those consideration when it comes to risk analysis. So risk and testing. If you remember, this is part of our keeping software in control. Risk testing. So it's two words. When you're testing, be checking the risk. So it is not possible to talk about test management without first looking at risk and how it affects the fundamental test process defined earlier. You can see, that's why I said our fundamental test process is key. It was all those background, everything is key while we are doing it. If there were no risk or adverse future events in software or hardware development, then there would be no need for testing. So if there was no issue, if we believe that if we carry a car, there will be no issue. So what's the essence of testing? There will be no need for testing. But there's no how. Even if you want to drink water, you will need to test it to be sure that it's not too hot, it's not too cold. So it depends on the kind of temperature. So all these unnecessary type of testing is we need to be checking the risk. If you're saying you're taking hot tea, you have put a boiling water, very boil inside your cup, and you just carry the cup and pour it. You didn't check whether it's hot or cold, and you pour it, you will get your mouth burnt. So hence we want to know that before you want to do, I'm testing it, I'm looking at it, ensuring this. In other words, if defects did not exist, then neither will testing be. So it's because of those defects that we have this role that you and I we are in. So a factor risk is a factor that could result in future negativity consequences, usually expressed as impact and likelihood. So anything that you see that will feel that is going to cause an harm, even while we are testing, it might not be necessarily, you might not be feeling the impact now, but have it. That's why I said when you were exploring, some of us jot some things down just to know. We were talking about experience-based. Those are the issues that you use in testing all this to test risk. You have to put those things down. So we must, when we are testing, we must be very careful and know how to check the risk. I've told you how it is. If you're testing, it depends on the application. Look for the risk. Look, there are some easy ways. If you can see some app, I've worked in, if you do, when you're testing also, if you've got details, always like check, do the F12, your more developers tool, check the history, look down that things are not being stored. Maybe details, pins are not stored after you finish using while you're testing. Those are loopholes. They are security testing that you can validate against. So what is risk analysis? Is the probability of occurrence of an undesirable event. Risk analysis in software engineering is a process of analyzing the risk associated with your testing project. Also, for the success of your project, risk should be identified. corresponding solution should be determined before the start of the project. Risk identification in software engineering helps you to identify probable risk in the early stages. So those are just what risk analysis is all about. Identify the risk. The next thing we are moving into now is to pick up those phases, the process. So the first one, we're talking about planning and estimation. So look further. So this time around, we are looking at the estimation, test estimation. We have been talking about it in our fundamental test process. The second level talks about test design and analysis. I was telling you how to analyze that. You'll see all those things now in terms of each of the components I'll talk about. An estimate is a forecast or a prediction. Test estimation is approximately determining how long a task will take to complete. Picking your user story, you need to assign and estimate a task to it. Estimating effort for the test is one of the major and important tasks in test management. Benefit of correct estimation. 1. Accurate test estimates leads to better planning, execution and monitoring of tasks under a test manager's attention. So the reason is that you might have a lot of, maybe you're the test manager, you're the lead, you have a couple of people working, other testers, which you need to monitor. We need to know everyone's availability and what you're working on. We don't want to give two people the same task to work on. We need to divide the task to know who is doing this and that. So with this estimation phase, it will help us to be able to know who is drafted to work on this project, what the execution phase is. So like now, you all are testers, you're here, you have been put in different teams. So we cannot put everyone in one team and start testing one website. You all have to do something. So that's why you're in different places and you have your tasks assigned to it. Now, your test manager will know that Rose is in this one, Adora is here, Alex is that. So each of you, Bidemi is there. So you're all in different teams. So when they know who is working. Oh, Rose will be working on the functionality for the footer. At the other phase, the other person will be working. So I know what you are doing at that. So it will make me be able to plan, monitor, know your availability, then allow for more accurate scheduling and help realize results more confidently. So that's the major benefit of test estimation. So test planning. We've been talking about the planning. So in the planning phase, a test plan can be defined as a document describing the scope, approach, resources, and schedule of intended testing activities. These are the features, these are the placeholders for test plan. A project may fail without a complete test plan. Test planning is particularly important in large software system development. It is always key and good for you to have a test plan. The test plan is just like a guideline for testing, which everyone, when I mean everyone, all stakeholders involved, the developers, solution project managers, everyone is aware of it. That is more of a transparent book that makes them know that this is the approach we're taking, this is the resources. They go back to this book to check. They go back to this document to make because when you have things planned, it gives you a visibility. It makes you know what exactly you are going to do. It's good to have a detailed and structured test plan. It's subject to updates, maybe when things change, and maybe when most of like now, someone asked now, I didn't see the name, but when she was talking about the business are going back because they didn't ask the question from the business analyst because it was still early days for them. You can still go back to all those things should have been stated in the test plan to say this is what is expected. You can go back and say, ask this question, business analyst, can you tell me, Mr. Business Analyst, what is this all about? Explain to me. Those questions are the things that we do at the planning phase. In software testing, a test plan gives detailed testing information regarding an upcoming testing effort, including 1, test strategy, test objective, exit or suspension criteria, resource planning. So the resource is you and I for us to know where exactly you fit in. Then test deliverables. What are we going to deliver? What are the things that we're going to deliver? What are your deliverables? Your scripts, your test cases, your plan, your strategy, everything, logs, data, all those things that you're going to bring out are the deliverables. So these are the major things that it gives us an insight of when it comes to test planning. Test organization in software testing. So what is the organization in software? Is a process of defining roles in the test process. So it's also going to be part of what is going to be in your test plan. You want to know who is doing who is the person that we can hold to say is the one working, is going to work on, is going to be the developer, who is going to be developing for this project, who is going to be testing, who is the project manager, who is the scrum master, someone, a name to a title, to a work activity, so that we are all sure that if I go and meet developer A, he's the one working on this. We know who is who. So that's the way. So we need to define the roles and the responsibilities. So all this has to be tested also in the test plan. It gives us visibility. It makes us understand that this is who is going to deal with this. It defines who is responsible for which activities in the testing process, text functions, the text functions, facilities, and other activities are also explained in the same process. We'll talk about it and we'll say it. The competencies and knowledge of the people involved are also defined. However, everyone is responsible for quality of testing process. We are all, because it's a role. So everybody, we are all involved in it. So the next one is the execution phase. And we are going to be talking about the test monitoring and control. So what will you do when your project runs out of resource or exceeds the time schedule? You need to monitor and control test activities to bring it back on schedule. So, like I've said, initially I was saying about the resources. You might think that this project will need just one tester to be there. The workload might be too much for one tester. So it should have been part of in your test plan. You would have stated it that if it's more, what is your contingency plan? What is the mitigation plan? Well, I'm going to look for resource BC. So they will have 50%, they can join to L. Because if the workload is much, definitely you won't be able to meet the deadline. And if you can't meet the deadline, it's going to move the project plan further. So we need to be careful also, because the more, if most of these things too, you have to understand, it's not that you want to put everyone, all the tester in just one project. No, but we need to know how the resources are, and that's why those things have to be considered when we are designing our test plan. So all these are the things that we need to monitor when it comes to um, the execution phase of the test management process. Test monitoring and control is a process of overseeing all the metrics necessary to ensure that the project is running well, on schedule, and not out of budget. So all those things have to be put into consideration. Hence, the reason for this test monitoring and control, so that we are sure that we are overseeing everything, all the metrics, how this is going. We have said test plan is going to take um, 2 weeks. So we know it's going to take 2 weeks, including sign off. Test cases is going to take the next 3-4 weeks. We know this is it. So all those things put everything in check, so that we know that we are on schedule, and we can deliver as at the within the deadline. So now the next thing is in the execution is monitoring. We want to be monitoring. So what are we monitoring? Monitoring is a process of collecting, recording, and reporting information about the project activity that the project manager and stakeholders needs to know. So that takes us to also our fundamental test process, where it talks on the fourth part of evaluating exit criteria and reporting. This is where it comes in. You can see I'm still, all these things, I'm just going back to them, bringing them out. Is still what we are still talking about. So it's mainly collecting, recording, and reporting. So I've tested these test cases. This is the result. These are the old script. This is the metrics, number of test condition, number of test cases, number pass, number fail. All those kind of metrics are the things that we put in place to monitor. Test manager does these following activities. 1, define the project goal or the project performance standard. 2, they observe the project performance and compare between the actual and the planned performance expectation. So that's the way the project manager is meant to look at the test plan and design it in terms of when you want to monitor to know what exactly the performance of the project is going to be. What are we going to compare it with? What is we've planned, this project has been planned to be delivered in the next 6 months. What is our plan? And from the testing part of it, this is XYZ we're going to do. Once we need this project delivered to our own table for at this time. So once development is getting for that, we've not gotten it, we need to indicate all those yardsticks into the project plan. Also, the project manager needs to record and report any detected problem which happens to the project. So we need to. So if the test manager feels that there's going to be an issue with the resources, there's going to be an issue with what we don't, some of the tools and the likes, you raise those concerns. Do we have a stable test environment? Do we know exactly how many environments you are expecting? Who is going to? So all those questions would have been back and forth with the test manager. And that's the way all these things the test manager puts into consideration when the test plan and also is being control issue management. As mentioned in the beginning of the topic, all projects may have potential risk. When the risk happens, it becomes an issue. In the life cycle of any project, there will always be an unexpected problem and questions that crop up. For example, is what you asked also today. There will be you can go back as many times as possible to query any user story, any requirement document. You can keep going. It's an agile environment. The company cuts down your project budget, there will be an issue. So if there's cut down on the project, maybe 3 resources of testers were drafted and they cut it down to 1. The workload is there. So you don't expect the job, 1 person to do the job of 3 people. So there's a gap there already. Your project team lacks the skill to complete the project. So maybe we've got new joiners that they need to. So it will take your time. You are explaining to the person and also testing. Also, the project schedule is too tight for your team to finish the project at the deadline. So those could be an example of issues that will crop up in the life cycle. Risks to be avoided while testing. 1, missing the deadline. We just need to avoid it. Exceed the project budget. If I've said 2, 3, manage within that resource, but put mitigation plan. Lose the customer's trust. This is vital. You have to make sure. And that's why, I said testing, we as testers, we are more like the main heart. We are standing in gap. We are the users. We are working for them. What they're expecting from us is we should test properly, though we are still going to give them, but we are the one representing them internally. So when these issues arises, you have to be ready to deal with them, or they can potentially affect the project's outcome. So that takes us to test report and evaluation. The project has already completed. If you remember, test report and evaluation, it is now time to look back what you have done. So this is where we are collating our exit criteria, our reporting. We are evaluating it, looking at analyzing what we have done. We need to look back. The purpose of the test evaluation report is, 1, that the test evaluation report describes the result of testing in terms of test coverage and exit criteria. So the easiest truth is that if you have done your RTM, requirement traceability matrix, and you have given us all the list, we are certain that, she's covered everything. It's covered everything. So this is everything I was explaining yesterday. Exit criteria. We have said we finished now. We have to stop. So to exit it, all these details we need to analyze it. We need to evaluate it. We need to know what are we happy to exit, or we cannot due to some critical bugs, some major bugs, or we are fine, we've still got cosmetic bug or medium bug. So we can now vary and know how those ones could be fixed. Those are the things. The data used in evaluation are based on the test results data and the test results summary. That's what we use in evaluation. Test management. Test estimation. There are 2 test estimation process. We've talked about it already. Metric-based and expert-based. These 2 approaches are quite different. The former being based upon data, while the later is somewhat subjective to approach. So let's take the first one, metric-based approach. This approach relies upon data collected from previous and similar projects. This kind of data may include 1, the number of test conditions you've written, number of test cases you've written, the number of test cases executed, the time taken to develop the test cases, the time taken to run the test cases, the number of defects found. These are, and then the number of environment outrage and how long on how long on an average each one lasted, maybe performance testing. All these are the key things when it comes to metric base. So you are already doing your estimation, you are evaluating. All these key things are what you want to. What are the test conditions? We've mapped it. We know the test cases we've written, how many we've executed it. We need to know what is the report like, the time it took us. We know the number of test cases we run, defects that are found. We found 50 defects. The ones that are fixed, 40 or 35 fixed. The number of environment outrage. What are the disruptors? What happened during each when we were testing in the environment? So all those things are what we put in the metric-based approach. So entry criteria. Entry, we are starting. I've talked about entry criteria and exit criteria. Those were part of the two words that I've given you. So I'm just continuing to just let you know that it's still key, even in test management. It's key because it's going to be part of your test plan. You have to have a starting and also a stopping time. So entry criteria are used to determine when a given test activity can start. This could include the beginning of the level of testing, when test design, and when the test execution is ready to start. Some typical entry criteria might be: 1, all test cases and test scripts are ready. You can see even the textbook uses it interchangeably, test cases. So you writing your test cases there is already a big script. So it is ready. Test environment is ready and stable. What test environment are we going to use? Do we have it? How is it? Verify that. Sorry. Code, build, and deployment to test environment successfully. These are part of our smoke test. Smoke test passed. So we'll have to check. Once the developer deploys this into the test environment, you want to smoke test. Check, can I log in? Am I able to do it? So that's it. The relevant requirement artifacts are available. So the whatever is required from us in terms of all the testing artifacts, we have it available. The dev environment, the test environment, all the infrastructure, the configuration, everything is as expected. Then we are ready to start testing. Don't just start like that. Make sure you do all these checks to make sure you have it. Then take us to exit criteria. What is exit criteria? In testing, oftentimes, exit criteria is exit criteria is exit criteria in testing is often viewed as a single document commensurating the end of the life cycle phase. It can be defined as the specific condition or ongoing activities that should be fulfilled before completing the software testing life cycle. So exit criteria, you must have, this is how, this is the expectation. We are finished. What exactly have you completed? This is what we have tested. Everything passed 85% green, and these are the mitigation plans. These are the open defects. These are the way forward. So those plans are the things that you want to add in your exit criteria. STLC specifies which exit criteria is required at each testing phase. The exit criteria can identify the intermediate deliverables and enable you to track them at independent events. So this is more like you knowing when exactly, when you finished, you have stopped testing, we need to let them, you can't just say, I've stopped testing, carry on. It's an end of phase, it's an end of a cycle. A TCR is needed, test closure report, which includes your exit criteria, is needed. So this is all about entry and exit criteria. So that takes us to, also, I brought this back again. It's just a refresher to let you know risk and testing. It is not possible to talk about test management without first looking at the risk and how it affects fundamental test process. You see that I've emphasized it. I also explained what this risk is. I brought it again just for a refresher, because the next time, what I'm doing now is for you to know that the major thing here is testing and risk. Testing and checking the risk. That takes us to test plan and strategy. So, test plan. What is test plan? A test plan is a detailed document that describes the test strategy, objectives, the schedule, the estimation, and also the deliverables and resources required for testing. This book, this document is a big high-level document that we need everything that is required for testing, the deliverable estimation, the schedule, the objective, the strategies, all those things are the things needed in test plan. Test plan helps us to determine the effort needed to validate the quality of the application under test, like the Blue Sky application. That's the application under test. That's what it means, the project you're working on, that application. The test plan serves as a blueprint to conduct software testing activity as a defined process, which is minutely monitored and controlled by the test manager. Excuse me. So with the test plan, it's more of a blueprint. It's something we all, it's just a big face to say, we the testing team. This is our plan. I will give you the plan. That is the foundation. That is the major thing to say. You can't start writing test cases without starting with a plan. So now, importances of test plan. Designing a test plan has multiple benefits. Helps people outside the testing team, such as developers, business managers, customers, understand the details of testing. You can see all stakeholders involved. This book test plan has to go to them for approval. Test plan guides our thinking. It is like a rule book which needs to be followed. It is a rule book which needs to be followed. Important aspects like test estimation, test scopes are documented in the test plan. So it can be reviewed by management team and reused for other projects. So it's a reusable plan. Most of the organization will always have a test plan template. Well, in the absence of none, anyone you design from here is going to be a valid one. You can use it at any time. So, how to write a test plan? These are the components of how to write the test plan. You start, number one, you analyze the product. You design the test strategy. You define the test objective. You design the test criteria. Then you do the resource planning. You plan the test environment. You schedule the estimations. And the final bit of it, you determine the test deliverables. Let's just go there straight. So how to write a test plan? One, analyze the product. The product under test here is the Blue Sky Citadel. I use it as an example. You should recite the clients and the end users to know their needs and expectation from the application. So you would have been given a mandate, a project mandate. These are the people, these are the expectation. You need to know who exactly wants to use the website. They are the end users. Who are we? Who are our target audience? Who are the target? Who are you? Who are the people going to use this application? That takes us to know who will use this website. So for the Blue Sky Citadel website, for this training site, who are going to be anyone from 18 and above that wants a career change in terms of tech. That's so we know where we are. I said that is the age range. What is it used for? What is this application used for? You need to know it when you're analyzing the project. How will it work? So how is it going to work? We need to register via the link. So that's how we work. What are the software and hardware the product uses? So all these things are some of the questions we talk when we're analyzing the product. Then we develop the test strategy. What is test strategy? It's a critical step in making a test plan. A test strategy document is an high-level document which is usually developed by the testing team, by the test manager. Most of the time, it's meant to be conducted and also controlled by the test manager. As a test manager, I can tell you to go and write the test strategy. I would look at it, review it, we'll pair review it together. That's the way it works. So it continues, define the test objective. How do you define the test objective? Is the overall overall goal and achievement of the test execution. The objective of the testing is finding as many software defects as possible. Ensure that the software on the test is bug-free before release. I know you've heard it severally. That is the essence. Count that bug that you're finding as the money, like the cash. You have to look for bug. That's the essence of your testing. To define the test objectives, you should do the following steps. List all the software features. That's the functionality, performance, the GUI, graphical user interface, which makes anything the non-functional testing, security testing. It depends on the application you're working on, which may need to be tested. So list them out first. Then define the target or the goal of the test based on the above features. So you have to, for the functional part of it, this is what we want to test. For the performance, the non-functional part of it, for performance, security, the GUI. So you need to know the goal of each of what you are testing in the feature. Then you define the test criteria. What are the test criteria? You see the two coming again, exit and the entry criteria. There's going to be part of it. Test criteria is a standard or rule on which a test procedure or test judgment can be based. There are two types of criteria, exit and entry criteria. That's it. We've explained it. How to write a test plan. Resource planning. Resource plan is a detailed summary of all type of resources required to complete the project tasks. Resource could be human, equipment, materials needed to complete the project. So these are the resources. So it could be the Azure DevOps that you need. Those are the tools, your Visual Studio, SpecFlow, or libraries, all these things needs to be checked. Well, it's going to be part of the test plan for us to know. Plan test environment. So what is the test environment? A test environment is a setup of software and hardware on which the testing team is going to execute test cases. So all the test cases you've designed, you need a test environment to test it. I've explained the test environment, that it's a phase where the application you have developed needs to be tested upon. So that URL is what you'll be given. The endpoint is what you'll be given. That's where you will now execute your test, as well as physical environment such as server, front-end, and running environment. This is how, so you have to plan it, know it. Then schedules and estimations. By creating a solid schedule in the test planning, the test manager can use it as tool for monitoring the project progress, control the cost overall. So this is the phase where we need to add what the estimation is, the schedule, we need to know. So to create a project schedule, the test manager needs several types of inputs, such as employee and project deadline. So the working days, the project deadline, resources availability are the factors which affect the schedule. So we need to know resource A, how many days are you using with us, to determine what is the project deadline. The resources that we are going to use, we need to know their availability, the tools that we're going to use, the materials, are we going to use physical devices? What do we have available? All those questions are the things that he needs to know. Project estimation. Based on the estimation, the test manager needs to know how long it takes to complete the project, so he or she can make the appropriate project schedule. Please, mute, please. Project risk. Understanding the risk helps test manager add enough extra time to the project schedule to deal with the risk. So if we understand the risk earlier, it will be an advantage for us. So test deliverables is a list of all the documents, tools, and other components that needs to be developed and maintained in support of the testing efforts. There are different test deliverables at every phase of the software development lifecycle. So the deliverables, your test plan, all the things, the tools that you're going to use, whatever you're going to do, all those things need to be detailed in the test plan. So there are various phases at every level. Different test deliverables are expected. In UAT to be different, test it to be different, prod, there are different expectations. So it could be before testing, during testing, after testing, different phases. So that takes us to test strategy. What is test strategy? A test strategy is a plan for defining the approach of software testing lifecycle. It guides the QA team. Now, test plan, it's a big one. It's like an eye level of what we are going to do. We give it to them to let the whole team, visibility for the whole team. Now, this test strategy is more to do with us as testing team. It gives us a defined process, a test coverage, and also make us know the testing scope. It also aids tester to get a clear picture of the project at any instance. The possibility of missing any test activity is very low when there is a proper test strategy in place. The test strategy document answers questions like what you want to get done. How are you going to be? How are you going to accomplish it? It is the most important document for any QA team. So that's why in some organization, they call it test strategy and test plan. They do both together. Some even take test strategy as the main document, but they are two different things. This one is within us to use. Sometimes we also give it out, and that's why I said it depends on how the organization works. So writing an effective test strategy document is a skill that testers develop with experience. Testing strategy plan should be communicated within the entire team so that the team will be consistent on approach and responsibility. Sorry, how to prepare a good test strategy. Every organization has their unique priority. You see that I keep emphasizing because the way it works in my organization is different from the way it's going to work in yours. It's different from the way it's going to work in others. So we follow the rule, but we are also still following the same process. It's just that maybe the test plan you brought, they have a template already. If they don't, then they will adopt yours. They can accommodate yours because you are the one that advocated for it. So you will own that part of it. Every organization has their unique priority and set of rules for software design. So do not copy any organization blindly. You see that? So now, in team A, like we now in the internship, the way it is in team A is different from what it is in team B. So maybe the mandate there is to build an e-commerce. In the next one, the mandate might be a financial technology. So you can't copy the same thing. So you have to be careful to know that some of the things that is going to change. Always ensure that the document is compatible and adds value to your software development before following the template. Step 1, scope. It defines parameters like who will review the document, who will approve the document, software testing activities carried out with timelines. So those are the things that it is. We go further. Step 2, test approach. It defines the process of testing, the testing levels. Don't forget, we've said all those things before. Testing levels that we talked about previously at each of the phases that we're testing. Unit, integration, acceptance, all those levels. Roles and responsibility of each team member. Yemi is the test manager. Rose is the test analyst. Alex is the developer. Esther is the project manager. So those things like that are the ways we move it. Types of testing: load testing, security testing, performance testing, smoke testing, regression testing, retesting of bug fixes, functional testing, non-functional testing, types of testings to be conducted. Testing approach and automation tools if applicable. So these are the test approach you consider when you're writing the test plan. Adding new defects, retesting, defect triage, regression, retesting, and testing sign-off. All this is part of the things that we look forward to. Then the third thing is test environment. We've spoken about that. Define the number of requirements and setups required for each environment. Define backups of test data and restore test strategy. Then testing tools. What are the tools? You are going to do automation. I've been talking about Visual Studios. You need to know the libraries. You need to know, is it Visual Studio 2022 you're going to use? So you need to know the libraries. You need to know the tools, the things that you're going to add into it. I was going to talk to you. So you just need to know the test management tools for the execution. You already know the ones, the defect management tool you're going to be using, which is Azure DevOps. So figure out a number of open source as well as commercial tools required and define how many users are supported on it and plan accordingly. This is just how you, the kind of tools you're going to use. So you open source are like free tools that you can use. won't need. But in your organization, it might need to be licensed for. So they will give you the ones that are licensed for. So the fifth one will be release control. Release management plan with appropriate version history that will make sure that test execution for modification in that release. So we need to do a release control. So we are deploying into all environments. So it has to be in consideration so that when we are putting forth to deploy, to release into the user's environment to make it live, we need to put a consideration, work on that, know what kind of version. It should be version control. We should have a backup. All those things have to be put in consideration. So it will be done by the release team. Risk analysis. We've talked about this all through today. List all risks that you can estimate. Give a clear plan to mitigate the risk and also a contingency plan. So those are the things that you need for risk analysis. Then the seventh one is reviews and approvals. All these activities are reviewed and signed off by the business team, project management team, and development team, etc. So development team, you and I, business team, project management. So all this, you must at least have a stakeholder in each of these that is going to sign off. Summary of review changes should be traced at the beginning of the document along with an approved date, name, and comments. So we are getting to the final bit of it. Just to say test plan versus test strategy. In a test plan document, a test focuses on, in the test plan, test focus and project scope are defined. It deals with the test coverage, scheduling, features to be tested, features not to be tested, estimation, and resource management. While test strategy is a guideline to be followed to achieve the test objective and execution of test types mentioned in the test plan. It deals with test objective, test environment, test approach, automation tools and strategy, contingency plans, and risk analysis. Thank you all. And this is the end of manual testing class. So I want to first say, I will stop sharing, please, first. Then I want to be sure that I have something. Let me see. Oh. So this is the end of the class. I'm just trying to display a test plan. So my assignment to you all, for you all, is that in each of your team, you'll be like 3 or 4 QAs there. So you are all going to come together. You must design test plan. In your test plan, there are various test plans there. In your test plan, each of you must have the placeholder, like someone would take in scope, features to be tested, is the person to design, to write what is expected there. Having said that, each of you can do it individually, then come together and do one comprehensive one that you walk through. You all walk through the plan and you integrate it together. So you must write a test plan and also your test cases for each of your projects. All your test cases, when you design it, you put it in Azure DevOps. Then I would have a look there. Though your mentor will be there, I will pop in and look at it. When I look at it, if I need, I'm not going to make correction. I can only send a chat or tell your mentor what you are not doing properly. Please and please, this is the end of manual testing class. I'm wishing you all the best. I'm believing at the end of this, if you can write a good test cases, design a good test script, and design a wonderful test plan, I'll advise you to start writing, get your CV down, and start looking for a manual testing job. With the kind of people I have in this class, most of you are ready for the task. I believe somehow, someday, we might be colleagues. It's a small world, yeah, so we might work together one of these days. I wish every one of you all the best. Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
And
Stop
you
recording.
are free. Yes, please stop. So you are free at any time